Basically, the first step is that everyone kind of runs into Argo CD, and there's a lot of primitives that are already set up for you. One, for
Yeah.
example, is the default admin password, which is great. However, we definitely want to look at how we go ahead and secure, not only that, but there's a number of different other areas that you can secure within Argo CD. We touched upon a number of them inside this chapter. Everything from TLS certificates, how we do server
Yeah.
verification and Git verification, as well as how we authenticate to the API server.
Yes. And so what are the recommended ways to actually I'm not going to say deal with, but like once it's actually fulfilled its job, what to do with the admin user and its secret? I guess that has been a super, nice, convenient.
I know
Once we were going over the
Carlos is definitely
early
in the mindset.
chapters.
Carlos is definitely in the mindset of removing it. It depends. I think it's a great development resource. But if you're looking to go to production, highly recommend getting off of the static users and moving towards enterprise OIDC base.
Yeah, we don't have a customized way to set up how Argo CD is deployed, right? Like I don't want our admin user from the get-go, but I want this. So this is coming by default. I'm kind of answering my own question, but I just wanted to see if this was ever thought.
So it's good to have the baselines. However, there are several different ways, and we touched upon them in the earlier chapters of how to deploy Argo. And the way we do it in the book is we use the Helm charts. So you can go ahead and customize the configuration of Argo through the Helm charts so that even though we're kind of doing things after the fact, you can do them at day one. And the Helm chart that we deploy to set up the server itself in this chapter does set some of those primitives up.
Yeah, it's just generically speaking, I always recommend using the Helm chart for Argo to install for a few reasons. One, it's just the simplicity of like, especially if you want to make like tweaks and things like that, right? You just do a Helm update or a Helm upgrade, use the same values, tweak your values, and then it's just really, really robust, right? And the reason for that is that the Argo CD Helm chart is now officially part of the Argo project ecosystem, right? So it's not like a third party. It's not like it's actively developed, actively maintained. It's used at Intuit. It's used at Pipekit. It's used at like all these organizations, and it's really, really robust. So not to say that doing customize is like quote unquote the wrong way. That is still supportable, and that's still going to be a way to install it. But I always highly recommend it just because it's not just random people doing it, right? Like it's an actual officially part of the Argo project
Bootstrap.
ecosystem.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So at what point we should be considering removing this? Like, okay, we set it up, Argo CD server, and like how do you not break your existing automation when you try to set up RBAC driven, accounts, right? So at what stage you have to take care of this, but either by disabling or removing?
I mean, I usually make a when you're looking at like integrating it with other systems like a CI. We get into the CI for a couple chapters down the road.
Yeah.
You typically will do that later in your exploration of Argo. So you're going to just get comfortable. You're going to understand the workflows, and then you start to look into how do we integrate it with other systems. And at that point, you're probably going to be using the enterprise tool. And there are also the other account types that you can leverage within Argo. You can use a static account that only has API access. So you can't log into the CLI, or you can't log into the console, with these accounts. And we talk about that, I think chapter 13, something along those lines, when we start talking about Argo.
Okay, cool. So this is coming up. Amazing. And we have also the warning about the insecure communication flag, and we will have to take care of this as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, we go ahead and we showcase how to not make it insecure later on in the chapter.
Yeah.
We'll talk about how we can set up certificates appropriately. And the first step to set up this entire chapter is we have an entire Helm chart that we use the basic Argo Helm chart, but we have a set of customized values that set up the environment for this chapter.
Yeah, I was wondering um, if we could update this without deploying Argo CD server, like what disadvantages it might have, like what should we be careful about when we do this? I guess it's very early on you do that, right? So it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Most of the time, you're making these decisions where there's no workloads on it. You're going ahead and you're making the decision. Okay, I want to start integrating either TLS certificates. You want to do auth. Those are going to be early on in the process. You're not going to be doing that on a live production system.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's move on to certification and TLS certificates.
Yeah. So right now, if you scroll up a little bit, you'll see where things are kind of broken.
Oh yeah.
Where you saw a page that was basically saying, I can't connect too many redirects.
Oh yeah,
painful."
here.
There we go. It's basically because after installing it and with the configuration we gave it, we assume or we will work towards fixing it based upon setting up the proper certificates and then rolling them out for Argo to start leveraging. And we work through that. And the first step is going ahead and creating a set of SSL certificates.
Yeah.
So we set up basically a common root certificate, and then we set up a certificate for the actual server itself.
Yeah, and I was also wondering, like, oh wait, it's later on, right? Yeah, I was also wondering about the SSL pass-through for Nginx, right? So is this going to be all the time, always the case within Argo CD that we use it this way? Or do we do TLS termination elsewhere?
You can do it many different ways, and that's really up to you and your organization on how you want to handle certificates. You can terminate at an ingress controller, or you can terminate all the way down at the individual pod level itself. And for this example, we're basically going ahead and saying Nginx, which is our ingress controller, don't worry about termination. Just pass along the traffic to Argo and have Argo deal with it.
Yeah, this gives us the opportunity to do end-to-end encryption, right?
It's the most secure because you own the entire stack.
What in what cases would people pick to do it, the termination on Nginx side?
The best reason why is if you have a common certificate that you want to just leverage. So I use OpenShift as my Kubernetes platform. There is a default certificate that you can leverage. And basically for the end users, by default, you don't have to worry about it. It terminates at the ingress controller itself. And you just configure that. And the only downside is obviously you're running insecure within the cluster. You can do re-encryption where you can terminate at the ingress and then re-encrypt it for another certificate, but we didn't get to that level of detail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay. And then, so we need, you said one root certificate, right?
Yep, we have one
root. Yeah.
And then we have the actual leaf certificate, the one for the actual Argo CD server itself that uses the root as the issuer.
And we'll be storing them somewhere. And I guess that's the secret, right?
Yep.
And then what happens when you all of a sudden create this secret within the Argo CD namespace? We get this message right now.
Yeah, because basically we are still setting up a self-signed certificate. We're generating it. Your browser is not going to trust it by default. So you have to go in and say you sign your life away, understanding it's not a trusted certificate, and it's okay to proceed on to the Argo server.
Yeah, when you're in a like organization, usually the CA certificate is passed out, right? Like in you have some CA server, right? Like you log in, like either like Kerberos or whatever, and you obtain these CA certificates like generally, right? So you wouldn't typically see this like in an organization. But like if if you're not importing the CA certificate, like you're gonna see this, right? Like in your org. So just that's kind of like the note that's listed there, right? Like the root certificate, like you can configure it on an operating system level, like as you log into your operating system, like in a corporate environment. But right here, we're just generating it just so you can just see like the process of doing it.
Yeah. And then, yep, we are already in repository access. Did I miss anything important here? So yeah, actually, so we we will need to define how external resources communicate with the API and the UI. And so just we will have more points to secure within the Argo CD toolchain, I reckon. So we also need to get access to our repositories, right? So getting our code bases, connecting to our code bases. Sorry, my train of thought stopped for a second. So yeah, we will need to. Oh, okay.
Yeah, when we start looking into this, it's how do we communicate? Like, how do we talk to secure repositories? And then how are those repositories secured, whether they be from a credential perspective, but also a transport level?
Yeah, exactly. So for this, we need to also secure our communication with our Git repositories. Also, I'm guessing we would need to be able to support this because of enterprise environment requirements anyway. So I think Christian got the question from the chat, but let me read it. Can we elaborate more about the method of installation? According to Argo CD install docs, the Helm chart is currently community maintained. I read this as not an official way of installation, but apparently it needs to be updated.
So, yeah, no, that just needs to be updated, and I need to know where, just because sometimes we get weird tagging issues with documentation. So by the way, this is the trouble. This is generically in open source. This is the trouble with co-locating your docs with your code because when like latest doesn't always mean newest, right? So like if we reach the patch version of 2.17, that's the latest, even though we're on 3.2, because it's the latest. Like we just released, but the docs get like skewed, right? Like so. Anyway, it's not your fault. It's our fault. That is not as a community.
I think that was just a question, not blameful thing. So no worries. Yeah. So for this example, you got Gitia. I'm not sure if I read it correctly. To be installed. Yeah.
Yeah, Gitia is a self-run Git server. So there are many different options for running Git. You can run, use GitLab, GitHub. Those are hosted options, or they also provide on-premise options. This is a free open source option. It's very lightweight. Yeah. It's one that I know Christian has used in the past, and it's really popular.
Yeah, we also going to be installing it using a Helm chart here. So, and we'll be actually keeping it like every other Argo CD application, right? And then yeah, we will need to create another TLS certificate for that. And in our namespace, we need a new namespace, right? Yeah. Sorry, I got lost again. So this is the certificate that is added to the full chain certificate, right? So this is not, this is the Argo CD server certificate we had earlier, and we're adding this to this one, right? Okay.
Yeah, so what we did is we created two certificates originally. We created a root certificate, one that's common for any certificate we're going to create across the book. And then we created individual certificates for each of the components that we're going to be leveraging. One was Argo, and this is now Gatia. That's the second one.
And then we need to create a secret to hold that certificate in the Gatia namespace, and then deploy the Gatia instance. And then here you go. You have a nice Git server, basically, running on your Kubernetes cluster instance.
Yep. And we also did a little bit of setup as well. We set up some repositories and populated them with some content that we'll then actually walk throughout the chapter.
Actually, we had the I must have the sorry, let me share this tab. Yeah, I must have the code for this. So yeah, wait. Here, so we configure the admin, we configure how the ETS service will look like, and then Kubernetes service though, and then the ingress. So here we use SSL redirect, okay, and then we have the TLS details. So we have the secret name. So that's the secret name you want to create within your namespace for Gitia, basically. We have, Math is asking, does this approach mean both use self-signed certs, but if you tell your browser to trust one, it will automatically trust the other because they use the same root?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I just responded to that.
Yeah.
And yes, that was the goal, is that we have a number of certs here, and we wanted to make it so that if you really wanted to add just one, you add the root, and since the root is used by all leaf certificates, it would then be trusted.
Yeah. Then yes, so you will we will be able to put the content in there, but first I think we need another step, right? To configure, yes, TLS repository certificates. How do we do that?
So in Argo, there's a number. Everything in Argo is going to be a resource in the cluster, and there's a secret that specifies what type of credentials you need. Now, actually, that one I think is a config map. Another thing about it, Christian, keep me honest here, for the actual certificate itself, for trusted certificates, because you're going to have the certificates that Argo presents. Then you're going to have the ones that Argo itself needs to trust to communicate externally to external systems. You can think of Argo, yes. You can think of Gatia as being an external system.
Yeah. So Argo, and then just up to that end, Argo has things that automatically imports for you. So like things like the SSH fingerprint for GitHub, GitLab, right? Bitbucket, like it has things that it install, like those SSH fingerprints that it installs for you, right? So so that's why like it just works with GitHub. So a lot of people doesn't know there's actually stuff in the background that it makes it makes it user friendly, right? We actually had to install some of these things like install like transparently.
Wasn't it like 2021 or 2022 GitHub changed theirs?
Yes.
And we had to go ahead and rotate it.
Yep. I remember that. It just like a lot of like Flux got like everyone just all of a sudden, hey, my Argo /Flux/ whatever, right? Even I think maybe Ansible in some cases like stopped working. Like what happened? And it's like, oh yeah, Git rotated the SSH fingerprints.
I don't know if the laughter was necessarily what the site administrators were like, or DevOps folks were freaking out like, oh my God, what?
Yeah, because it's scary. Like you see like I don't know if you've ever SSH'd into something where the fingerprint changed, like it gives you this really nasty warning and it scares you. So yeah, everyone was scared. Like did I get hacked was like the first thing that probably administrators got.
Yeah, and I also was wondering how to use this with Git host level permissions. So do we need to do anything else, like create, I don't know, different levels of RBAC or something like that to manage this, or is this something you don't have to set off?
There is some RBAC that you can apply at a destination. So for projects, you can actually specify which source repositories you want to trust. So you can limit the number of repositories. So let's say I have a dev instance, I can say only go ahead and give me source code from the dev instance versus the prod instance.
This was allow listing, right? Or the other way around.
When we went through the project configuration, we talked about some of the ways you can restrict certain resources. Yep.
Yeah, and protected repositories. And could you go into a bit more detail in here?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to have two types of ways to communicate to a repository. First one's going to be you're going to be leveraging basic authentication, a username and password or a token that comes with it. The other one is going to be I have an SSH key. The most common you're probably going to have is SSH key. And Argo natively supports both of those types. They also support additional types of like root code identity, but the majority is going to be basic auth or SSH.
Yeah, yeah. And we have we have the chapter. As the chapter goes on, we have the example, the example, so you can keep building upon that. I'm quite upset that I didn't do this chapter's examples because this looks really nice. Hopefully before the next one I will try these. Yeah, so and then also we have the SSH-based authentication and enabling reuse through credential templates was something I didn't know about. Like, can you explain a little bit more of that?
Yeah.
Like, how can we use these templates?
Yeah, this is a way that you can simplify how you authenticate to systems. You may have a number of repositories on the same Git server. So instead of having to customize or create a credential for every single target repository, you can go ahead and leverage the same one because it's going to have the same password and same credentials itself, and avoid having to create the sprawl. Like if you have a large Argo CD deployment, you're going to have hundreds and maybe even thousands of applications, and that might have a similar credential associated to it. This allows you to simplify that and reduce the number of resources on the actual Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah. And yeah, please, Christian, share. Feel free to share a little bit more if I'm going too fast or anything in this. I've thought, we could try to finish this chapter today, but it's also I don't want to miss anything important here.
No, you're good. I think the pace actually is quite good. We're probably about halfway done right about now.
Yeah.
Got to delete the known hosts line. Oh yeah, I think that's the answer to the SSH thing. And what do we have here now? Enforcing signature verification. And yeah.
So this is actually a topic that I talk about a lot in the Helm community. Helm, you can sign and verify charts. And I would say probably about only 10% of people actually go ahead and sign and verify their charts. How many people will go ahead and create Helm charts? Raise your hand. How many have actually gone through the process of signing them? I'm guessing it's probably pretty low.
Guess so,
The question I have for you is, why don't you sign your Helm charts?
Why
should in most cases, it's hard. It's hard because GBG is not trivial. It reminds me of the days before Let's Encrypt, where you had to go in and create a certificate or a CSR, submit that to GoDaddy or your registrar of some sort, and you get back a certificate. Well, that's what newer tools like SigStore really ought to achieve, is making signing easier. So right now, the only verification that Argo supports is GPG-based. I definitely foresee there being additional options longer term I'm also doing similar actions over in the Helm community about how can we expand the signing options, make it easier for folks to sign and verify their content, so we actually use these tools instead of just having them available as an option or just learning about it on a podcast like this.
Yeah, and we have a question: is there a Let's Encrypt and Certbot, etc., for Kubernetes assets? That would
Yes,
be nice.
there is one. So there's a couple things. There's Let's Encrypt out for certificates for Kubernetes, and you can have integrations with a Cert Manager for one, which is great. But when it comes to signing and verifying content like artifacts, there is, and that's a project called SigStor, where this is actually being used by the Kubernetes community to sign and verify all their container images. So any container image that you're leveraging as part of Kubernetes, you can go ahead and verify those using the SigStor set of tools.
Yeah.
And
So
if we look at
we make sure also only signed and trusted content is deployed, right?
it, exactly, and especially since we're looking at leveraging some of the OCI artifacts, both from a Helm perspective, but also native OCI artifacts that just came out in 3.1. Maybe this is a good opportunity for us to revisit the signing discussion and seeing how we can expand the signing options that we have available to us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And yeah, this is something we don't necessarily use as a general practice, I reckon.
It's not that we all know we should,
Yeah.
but the problem is it's complex, it's hard, and especially since we're talking about production systems, it basically means that we add one more level of error and failure.
Yeah. What would be the possible failures could be here in
especially when it comes
this?
Yeah, the issue really is going to be that you don't have everything set up, or you have the wrong keys, or the process is cumbersome. Once you get things set up, it's actually pretty easy, but that's an initial setup that most people just fail to actually do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to go into details of how to troubleshoot this kind of problems, but
so we talk about in this chapter, and when it comes to signing and verifying content, we're actually signing the actual Git commits. So since we're obviously going ahead and using GitOps, we sign our Git commits and we verify them at the repository level when we bring it down into Argo.
Yeah.
And this is what we talk about in the chapter. We go in and set up the GPG key and sign the Git content ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something I had to set up really in the first step. In one of my in every setup I actually have to do in corporate environments, by the way. So if you get this enabled already, there's it's just really straightforward, but also probably
a lot of this chapter is as you probably see is layering on security as you're going through, right? So you're like layering on like it's not just like there's different like layers and barriers that you put in terms of security, right? Like it's one thing to have like encryption all the way through, certificates trusting each other, but it's also a signature verification in terms of your artifacts, right? Like stuff that actually lands on your cluster. You want to be able to trust that somehow, right? And so like these signature verification is a way to establish some sort of trust, right? It's like, okay, like I signed this with the key, and then the cluster will verify that. So then that way, when you're deploying your Helm charts, or when you're doing, you're deploying your Git repositories, there's that verification that happens. And if it fails, then something happened, right? There was a man in the middle attack, someone failed to sign, right? Which is also, probably happens more often than not. And then but that's good, because then you can see that there was a failure in the process, right? And so, it's always a lot of these things you're layering on security as you're going on.
Yeah. Any bottlenecks or like slowing the process kind of issues do you see
So the big thing I have when it comes to anything security is security can always be additive. You don't necessarily need to implement every security tool and process and enablement feature all at once, because every organization, every
okay.
individual is going to be different in their journey to make themselves more secure. So that's where I take the precedence of starting small and then building up from it.
Hmm. And which one would you take as the first few
The
steps to
first
not
one's
just ignore at all?
The first one's going to be certificates. Setting up
Yeah.
certificates so they're not the self-signed certificates that come with Argo, and at least going ahead and creating one or leveraging ones from your internal PKI within your organization.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we actually I forgot to mention this. Also, certificates that is not created by ourselves, but like we have to consume the certificates. That is also something we need to discuss as an organization, like decide where to do the uh, TLS termination and all that stuff, right? Like you were mentioning this. But I guess we're going to talk about how to manage this later in the CI workflows, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a big part of that for sure.
Yeah. And then apparently you can also disable the Argo CD GPG capability altogether, well, if need be. And then we get to the application sync impersonation section here. So
Christian, I'm
the
going to go ahead and leave that one to you.
Yeah, so this is what I added in terms of security, right? And so this is a feature that was added to Argo a few releases ago. But I mentioned last time that when Argo CD does a sync, it uses a default service account
yeah.
for the Kubernetes cluster. When that default account gets installed, that default account is cluster admin. So so yeah, you may be doing RBAC, right? Like you have like your RBAC set up, you have your user set up, right? Like, but when that user clicks sync, they're syncing as cluster admin. So
Given
and
identity, yeah.
yeah, and with an yeah, exactly, with an identity. And so you're just kind of just relying on the RBAC feature of Argo CD, which is rich, right? Which works. But sync impersonation adds again, like Andy was saying, another layer of security that you can implement. And so sync
Mm-hmm.
impersonation then now says, okay, given within a sync, I want you to sync as a specific service account that I set up. So that gives an administrator, gives the administrator the flexibility of further refining how syncs happen, right? So like if you given a specific application in a specific namespace, you can specify a specific service account, and then you can set up cluster role and cluster role cluster binding, cluster role binding, role bindings, whatever you need in order to further scope down that service account. So so that is a long way of saying now you don't have to just use one service account to sync. You can have many service accounts syncing with various level of access to your cluster. So that's kind of like that
Mm-hmm.
introduction. That's that introduction
Yeah,
there
yeah,
that
yeah,
that that
yeah.
that I wrote there. Um,
And
it's just a configuration, right? Right now, sync impersonation is in, I believe it's still in alpha. It might be beta in the next release, but you have to enable it specifically. I believe it's going to be disabled by default, from here on out,
mm-hmm.
because it's a lot of work. I don't want to say a lot of work. It's just involved to set it up properly, right? And so,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, so you basically turn it on with a config map entry.
Once it's enabled, what would be the errors I would see, or like
Yeah,
what
no,
would
yeah,
be the things I need to configure?
yeah, nothing will work once you enable it. Like
Deploy.
if you just
Yeah.
nothing will get deployed, nothing will sync, right? Essentially, it's basically waiting for you to configure it, right?
Yeah.
um and so that's the first step, right? It's basically just enabling it. And then you have to define the service account to use it for impersonation. And so that's kind of like the next section. It's like, okay, let's go through like this use case, right? Like just define the service account.
Yeah.
And that's like the next section, right? So you
Yeah,
define
yeah.
that in an app project, right? So
Yeah.
so in an app project, we kind of discussed that's kind of the unit of tendency in Argo CD. And basically there's a new section called destination service account. So you say, given this cluster, right, or server, whatever you want to
Yeah.
say, so given this server in this namespace, use this service account. And so so that's kind of like you define a service account for a specific thing. I recommend it.
Once you have the service
what's that?
account,
Mhm.
how do we know it's configured properly? Like,
Well, you don't. You have to create the service account, and you have to.
I have to create the service account, and
Yeah.
okay.
You have to configure it, right?
Yeah,
So there's a way to do a catch-all. I recommend doing a catch-all at the end, right? Saying, hey, if you can't find a service account, use this service account. So that's
Is there?
that's
Is it somewhere? Maybe I'm missing it.
yeah, it's I don't know if I put it in. It's definitely in the docs. I don't know if I put
Okay.
it in
Okay.
in the actual example here. But
So how does catch-all work? Like, okay, I am creating I enabled impersonation, and then I configured them for my app project, and then I happen to not have a service account for one certain project. Shouldn't it be deployed? Like, what does catch-all mean here?
Catch-all means
Shouldn't
it'll say
it be not deployed? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So catch-all is like, if I can't find a corresponding service account, use this service account. So that's kind of like the catch-all. If you don't specify a catch-all, it'll just fail. So, and maybe that's what you want. That's
maybe what that's
yeah,
what I was
that's
thinking.
probably that's maybe what you want. If you don't want that, there's a way to kind of I guess migrate into this newer way of thinking, because you can always kind of like have Argo say fall back to the old way of doing things.
Okay.
During like a migration period, or kind of like a brownout period, right? Where it's like, okay, like, we're moving to this new method, right? But like it'll work, first you set it up, but it'll fall back to the old way. And then later on, you'll remove the catch-all. So yeah, this is kind of like a very basic example saying, when you deploy to the, get in this project, anytime you deploy to the impersonation namespace, you're going to use a service account called Nginx deployer.
Yeah.
And that's really the Argo configuration piece of it. Really, kind of what you want to minimum is what you want to set up there. And so I believe I go through like you actually watch it fail. I believe in my example, I deploy that. The application, I don't think the application you need to do anything special. No, you don't. So you see there, the destination namespace is impersonation, right? And so you're deploying that, and then you'll notice, so that's what you'll see. Basically, it's like, hey, this user is forbidden to do whatever, right? Like here.
So this is the user that is trying to deploy, right? Not the user that has to be there. Service account that has to be there.
Yeah, no. So this says deployments, the Nginx deployment, the user, and it's basically giving you a service account, system service account impersonation. The name of the service account can't deploy a deployment, right? And so, so here I go through the example, like kind of like a baseline example right here. Like you create namespace, you create the service account, and then you create a role, right? So like, here you do Kubernetes create role, blah, 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 right? You go through the verbs of, of that, right? And then you create a role binding to that service account. And then once you sync it, then it's finished syncing, right? Once So this kind of I'm
Yeah,
going
I
through
was
the
also
steps.
going to ask about the GitOps workflow here. Like,
Yeah.
should we be, keep
Yeah,
keeping
you
them?
should be GetOpsing a lot of this, right? So like the bootstrapping aspect of it, like this needs to
Yeah.
happen like on a higher level, right? Because at the end, like the end users aren't going to be creating these service accounts. Like you're gonna, as an administrator, going to be creating them beforehand, right? You need to plan out your installation and deployment, and all that process there. And so, in order for the users to get here, right? In order for you to have that that kind of workflow going. And
But still,
so
these resources should be managed by the
administrator,
administrator,
yes.
I guess, right? Like wherever this is sitting in Git, it should be under their control, or code
Correct, yeah.
owners, kind of ownership probably.
Yeah, and so now so basically this app project is set up to use this service account anytime an application tries to deploy resources, right? Anytime you click sync, anytime you click delete, whatever, it's gonna do it. It's gonna do it as this service account, right? So as you can see, you can add like an additional layer of security there as well, right? Instead of using like the default Argo CD service account, you can define service accounts to do specific syncs, right?
Yeah.
And I'll actually maybe I'll post the doc here because there is come on, there we go.
What's the good level of granulization here? Like, what could we be making it too brittle, or let's say, okay, service account for each project, not project, but would a namespace be good enough? Like every resource under a namespace be good enough, or like do we go a bit more detailed, or
Yeah, I think the great way to start is to use the built-in ones, right? So like you can do, I can do kubectl create namespace, foo, right? You create your namespace, and then you do kubectl create service account, right? Like my service account, and then you do, kubectl create role binding to the edit, right? Like, so maybe you give it like, there's like a default edit. And then maybe that's what you want to give, right? Maybe that's like a good place to start. But yeah, like you can get pretty granular because once you create a service account, it doesn't have access to anything, right? And so that doc, that kind of gives you a good example.
So this is the catch-all you were mentioning as well, yeah.
Yeah. So like it'll go in the project, it'll try basically it says guestbook namespace use guestbook deployer. Namespace guestbook dev use the dev deployer, right? Stage use the stage deployer. But if you can't find anything else, right, just use a service account called default.
Everything else,
yeah, I think it states there in the doc that you can do namespace : right? So you can do like you can do something like default : Argo CD dash deployer, right? Like something like that. In the where it says default service account, right? You can do namespace : and so that way maybe you want to put it in a generic namespace if you want. I would probably do it on a case by case basis.
Where do you configure this? I don't remember seeing.
Yeah, I didn't put it in the book. Maybe I should have, but like where it says destination service account : default, right? You can do or like this is that is like namespace : the name of the service account.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let me put these in the docs as well for the notes of the book club, and we also had this one. And that's
so like it says this in the doc. So maybe I should post this here as well. Oops, that is not what I copied. Come on. And I probably should have put this in the book, or an example of this in the book, because I always call this out.
Feel free to share the screen if you like. That's also fine.
Yeah, let me. How do we do that?
Yeah, next to stop recording.
More.
All, yeah, all no.
Oh, share screen. There we go.
Yeah, all the
So I don't know if
important buttons are next to stop
yeah,
recording.
yeah. So it says here, it's possible to specify a service account along with its namespace, right? So like tenant one namespace colon guestbook deployer. If no namespace is provided for the service account, then
Yeah.
application spec destination namespace would be used. So basically, here you can add a namespace in front of the service account name, so it'll look for that specific namespace, right?
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
that's a good way of doing a catch-all. If you want to keep that the catch-all centrally, or it'll yeah, I think that's like probably a good way to get like reverse backwards compatibility. You can probably do Argo CD Argo CD dash application dash service account, right? Like that basically uses that service account. So maybe for the volume 2 of this book, I'll put more of those examples. But this is kind of like, yeah, to summarize and to kind of leave like, I guess, what do you call it? Room for a few questions. You're layering on security, right, as you're going along, right? Well, like the TLS certificates, trusting the certificates, going back and forth, and then doing signature verification, and then do sync impersonation. As you can see, you're hardening it more and more and more as you go along, and all these options are available to you. And so I think we also go like security comes into play a lot in terms of like doing CI/CD, right? Which I think we're going to go over in chapter 12 in a couple of weeks. But we revisit some of these topics as we go along in the book. But these are kind of like baseline type of things that you can do to harden the Argo CD system.
Thank you for the go ahead, Andrew. I wasn't entirely sure if you were in the metro now. By the way, Andrew, folks were by his desk, and now he was on the go for a long while, and he was still doing the session. So that's been amazing.
You can look at we're in the metro in Copenhagen right now. So
wow, you're in Copenhagen.
There you go. Yeah.
So anyway,
you're closer to me today.
Exactly. So there is no wrong answer. I'll say, I know Christian myself will say it every time. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really up to you and your organization of the security posture you want to implement and strive to. But don't try doing everything all at once. Go ahead and take it as you see and you're most comfortable. The worst thing you could do is to implement security practices that either don't align to your organizational standards, or you do not feel comfortable or do not know how to manage, because that actually makes you more vulnerable and at greater risk.
Yeah. They also, depending on the organization, obviously, people might come up with a clear roadmap of securing Argo CD day one. Like this might come as a question. So I guess you've set up the picture really good for this, like what must be happening. But if you could just from the back of your head, like if you were writing a such doc, like for someone who is only at the beginning of his journey.
This is where you start looking in, like shifting left, bringing in your security team at the beginning, because they're going to have advice, they're going to have suggestions of what steps you should take, and then they'll help you design it in an appropriate way that's tenable for you and your organization. The last thing you want to do is implement a system that is not trusted, not one that your organization is going to like. And
thank you for this. I just want to acknowledge it is a great approach to start at some point and build upon. Also, some organizations are very strict about the from get-go you have to be having the least privilege all at once. So yeah, there are, I guess, different ways to approach this problem.
I'll also say that if you take the foresight to reach out to your security teams, you're going to make a lot of friends in your organization because you're being forward-looking instead of having them. Last thing you want them to do is to have them uncover saying you're doing what now, and not in kind of doing Argo CD and GitOps under the covers. Be upfront, kind of ask them for suggestions and advice. You're going to make a lot of friends in your organization, and you're going to make yourself more secure.
Yeah, yeah. It's always good to make CISO your friend, to be honest. not to challenge them in the wrong way. Yeah, thank you, folks. Our dear attendees, do you have any questions for Christian and Andrew before we close the session? Any real-world problems you faced or you thought that might needs tackling later on? I guess Jack dropped as well. I'm glad he's not driving